Hello friends, hope you all are doing well. Now in this session I have covered the recent questions asked in the UPSC CMS, that is 2019, and hope this will be very helpful to you. So first question will be, which one of the following statements regarding contraception is not true? So we have to find out the incorrect statement. Option A, vaginal ring is a barrier method. Of course, it's not a barrier method. It is a hormonal contraceptive. Vaginal ring that contains levonorgestrel and it is placed within the vaginal mucosa, absorption done through there, and we have to place there for 3 weeks. So it is not a barrier method, but it is a hormonal contraceptive. Yes, obviously it is very confusing that we just focus on the term ring, and mostly lipase rope or ring, that are the barrier method, but vaginal ring is a hormonal contraceptive. Next option is the implanon is a hormonal contraceptive. Yes, implanon is nothing but just the norplant that also contains the levonorgestrel. It is placed beneath the skin of the underarm, forearm, upper arm. Now third option will be the copper T can be used as a post-coital contraception. Yes, copper T can be inserted just after the delivery. Yes, so copper T, so when will we do the insertion of the copper T, or the ideal time for the insertion? First, very ideal time, that is during menstruation or within just 10 days of starting the menstruation. That is the ideal time. Next ideal time, that is a immediate postpartum insertion. So just after the delivery, the cervical canal diameter is very large, and that will take very easy to insert the copper T, but there are very disadvantages among it, like perforation. But third is also, that is a post puerperal insertion. This is also best time for insertion of the any loop, that is a copper T, that is within 6 to 8 weeks after the delivery. So this is also used as a post coital insertion, that is within 5 days of the emergency sexual intercourse. It is the emergency contraception. It is within 5 days. So we can insert this copper T after menstruation, or within menstruation of the 10 days after the menstruation, then postpartum, post puerperal, and post coital interception. Then this is the wrong statement, that is a vaginal ring is a barrier method. That is not, it is a hormonal contraceptive. Global Hunger Index combines the 3 equally weighted indicators except. So option A, undernourishment. Yes. Option B, child underweight. Yes. Option C, child mortality. Yes. Option D, child morbidity. No. The Global Hunger Index that comprises of these 3 indicators: undernourishment, child underweight, and child mortality. In that, undernourishment means that is the inadequate supply of the food, and in underweight, 2 indicators, that is the stunting and wasting, and child mortality, that is under 5 mortality rate. So we have to focus on these 3 indicators mainly: undernourishment, child underweight, and mortality. There is no role of child morbidity in the Global Hunger Index. Right now India stands for 102 rank among 117 countries. Question number 3. Which one of the following tests should be applied to compare the mean hemoglobin level of the 2 groups of antenatal mothers? Okay, So we have to compare the mean hemoglobin level among the two groups. Okay, so when we have to compare, that means there is a pair or unpaired t-test. Okay, so if we are comparing within same group, okay, so then we have to apply paired t-test. And if we are comparing two independent groups, then we are applying unpaired t-test. Okay, so these are two individual or independent groups of the antenatal mothers, and there we comparing the mean of two groups, then we apply unpaired t-test. Next question, very factual question from the recent advances in the program. The specific goals for 2025 under the Integrated Global Action Plan for the prevention and control of pneumonia and diarrhea are all of the following except. Okay, so first we have to know about what is this global action plan for the pneumonia and diarrhea. Just we have to remember the two things in that just we have to reduce the mortality from the pneumonia in the children less than 5 years of the age to fewer than 3 per 1000, and in diarrhea we have to reduce the mortality less than 1 per 1000. Okay, so we have to just remember these two numbers in case of mortality. Okay, and in case of incidence or the severity of the incidence, we have to just remember the number 75%. Yes, we have to decrease the incidence of severity of diarrhea or pneumonia by 75%. So according to these facts, just option 1, reduce mortality from the pneumonia in the children less than 5 years of the age to fewer than 3 and pneumonia, yes, it's correct. Then second option, reduce mortality from the diarrhea in the children less than 5 years of the age to fewer than 1 per 1000, yes, it is also correct. Third option, reduce the incidence of severe pneumonia by 90%, no, it is by 75%. So this is the wrong option. Fourth option, reduce the incidence of the severe diarrhea by 75% in the children less than 5 years of age. Yes, it is correct. So we have to memorize these two facts. In case of mortality, pneumonia less than 3, diarrhea less than 1, and reduce the incidence of severity of pneumonia or diarrhea by 75%. About association between hardness of the drinking water and death rate from the cardiovascular disease. Okay, so this hardness of the drinking water, of course we obviously know that what is hardness, that is the soap destroying ability of the water. Now this hardness is due to carbonates and sulfates. Carbonates, it is calcium carbonate or magnesium carbonate, calcium sulfate or the magnesium sulfate. And the point is the hardness due to carbonates is temporary type of hardness, and hardness due to sulfates and other nitrates, this is the permanent type of hardness. Okay, and this hardness that is measured in milliequivalent per liter, so less than 1, that is a soft, 1 to 3 milliequivalent per liter, that is a moderately hard, and more than 3, that is a hard water. Okay, and this moderately hard water is useful for the drinking water. Okay, now the question is about the relation between hardness and cardiovascular diseases. Okay, so there is a inverse association between the hardness of the drinking water and cardiovascular diseases. That is, lesser the hardness, that is a softer the water, more is the risk of the cardiovascular diseases, and more the hardness, lesser the risk of the cardiovascular diseases. There is a statistical association between the hardness of the drinking water and the cardiovascular diseases death rate is inverse association. And of course there are still studies going on further, that is a calcium and magnesium ions play very important role in it. Okay, so the next question is about which one of the following statement regarding magnesium is not true. Okay, so magnesium, in all we have to that magnesium is a constituent of a bones. It is not only a constituent of bone but is found in all cells. Okay, and also, so this is a correct statement, it is a constituent of a bones. Second statement, it is essential for the normal metabolism of calcium and potassium. Yes, it is also a correct statement. Magnesium is required for the metabolism of calcium and potassium. Okay. Third statement, human adult body contains about 50 gram of magnesium. No. Human adult body contains about 25 gram of magnesium. Okay. Next statement, the daily requirement of magnesium is estimated to be about 340 milligram per day for the adults. This is correct. So we have to memorize the fact that magnesium is found in all cells. It is a constituent of bones. It is required for the metabolism of calcium and potassium, and human adult body contains 25 gram of the magnesium, and daily requirement of magnesium is 340 milligram per day for the adults. And also we know that the deficiency of magnesium, that it reflects to the hyporeflexia. Okay, then next question, which one of the following oil or the fat contains high monounsaturated fatty acid and moderate linoleic acid? Okay, high monounsaturated and moderate linoleic. Okay, so before coming towards the oil and fatty acid composition, we all know that fatty acid are of two types, saturated and unsaturated. Okay, so in unsaturated, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, that is a PUFA. Okay, so first groundnut oil. Okay, so groundnut oil, we have to just memorize the fact about it, that groundnut oil contains the high monounsaturated and also it contains a linoleic acid moderate amount. Okay, so this is the correct statement, that is about high monounsaturated and moderate linoleic acid about groundnut oil. Okay, next statement about palm kernel oil. Okay, this contains lauric acid or the stearic acid. Okay, so this is a saturated. Okay, saturated fatty acids are high in this palm kernel oil. Then come to the safflower oil. Okay, exactly opposite to the groundnut oil, that is it contains high amount of the linoleic acid. So if a question is asked about the high linoleic acid content, then the answer will be about safflower oil. It also contains the high monounsaturated, but the linoleic acid are high in amount in case of safflower oil and moderate amount in the groundnut oil. Okay, then the flaxseed oil. Okay, flaxseed oil is, the special fact is omega-3 fatty acid. Omega-3 fatty acids are more in this flaxseed oil. The answer will be the groundnut oil. And also the safflower oil contains the PUFA, that is polyunsaturated fatty acid, more than the groundnut oil. Next question, which one of the following trace elements, if deficient in the diet, can lead to low birth weight, preterm delivery, spontaneous abortion, or even congenital malformation like anencephaly. Okay. Now we will one go by options. First, copper. Okay. So what is copper function, or what exactly copper does for our body? So copper, that is requirement is just 2 milligram per our body weight per day, and that is sufficient from the diet. That copper deficiency rarely occurs in case of Wilson disease or the nephrosis, the cirrhosis of the liver, etc. So there is no concern about the copper and these symptoms. Okay, so no copper. Then next statement is about cobalt. Okay, cobalt, that is a only established function of the cobalt is a part of the adjacent to the vitamin B12 molecule, and this is helpful for the first process of the hormone synthesis. Okay, so there is also no role of cobalt. Then selenium. Selenium has also little bit role, that is it just occur in protein energy malnutrition, the deficiency of selenium, and also combined with vitamin E deficiency and selenium deficiency, that lesser the antibody production. So this is also no answer. Now the answer is zinc. Yes, zinc causes low birth weight, preterm delivery, spontaneous abortion, or even congenital malformation like anencephaly. Also it causes the loss of taste, and the adequate zinc, that is essential for maintaining the integrity of the immune system. Okay, so the requirement of zinc is 12 milligram per day in male and 10 milligram in female, also 10 milligram in children, and 5 milligram in case of the infants. So zinc plays very important role in it. The next question is about an adult weighs 73 kgs and has a height of 1.75 meters, and for the purpose of classification of overweight and obesity as per WHO recommendation, this person will be classified as, of course we have to derive the BMI or the Quetelet's index by this formula, that is a weight in kg divided by height in meter square. Okay. So 73 divided by 1.75 squares, approximately 23.06. Okay, so now we will come towards the classification of the BMI. Underweight, that is a less than 18.5. Normal is 18.5 to 24.9. More than 25 is overweight, and 25 to 29.99, that is a pre-obese. Okay, and here is a 23 that comes in the normal range, so this person will be classified as a normal. Now the next question is about which one of the following statement regarding WHO Global Action Plan for the prevention and control of non-communicable diseases is not correct. Okay, so this global action plan, just we have to remember the facts related to global action plan, that we must know the targets or the global targets of these non-communicable diseases action plan. So first, at least 10% relative reduction in the harmful use of alcohol. Yes, this is very correct statement. We have to just memorize that there should be, yes, 10% relative reduction in the harmful use of alcohol, as well as 10% relative reduction in the prevalence of the insufficient physical activity. Okay, and again 30% relative reduction in the mean population intake of the salt or the sodium, and 30% relative reduction in the prevalence of the current tobacco use. Okay, so alcohol and insufficient physical activity we have to reduce by 10%, and salt and sodium and tobacco use we have to reduce by 30%. And of course there is another target, that is halt the rise in diabetes and the obesity for the NCDs. So according to it, first statement is correct, that is a 10% relative reduction in the alcohol. Second statement, 20% relative reduction in the prevalence of insufficient physical activity. This is a wrong statement. We have to reduce by 10%. Then third statement, 30% relative reduction in the mean population intake of the salt and sodium. This is a correct statement. And halt the rise of diabetes and obesity. This is also correct statement. Okay. So this we have to memorize. This is a very factual question and we have to memorize the facts. That is, we have to alcohol and insufficient physical activity by 10% and salt and sodium intake and tobacco use by 30%. Okay. Thank you.